I've got to take a second on Diddle's organ though. That does not come out well.
Hello, and welcome to episode 149 of Rhythm Encounter, the RPG fan music podcast. I'm your host, Mike Salbato, and I have a great panel today to talk about our early video game music experiences. So before we get to the topic, let me introduce that fantastic panel, starting with Wes.
Hey, everybody.
Hello. Gio is back as well.
Hello.
And Rob, you're here. This is only your second time, isn't it?
It is, yep.
Well, welcome back. You sound so much better.
Thanks. I'm back with fantastic new equipment.
Well, I'm happy you're here. I'm happy all of you are here. This is a fun one. We not really related, but several years ago we did a feature on RPG Fan called Origins. It was like our first RPG, or at least the RPG that got us into the genre. So what we're doing here today is a similar idea, but more with a musical slant. Obviously, that's what we do here. So this maybe for some of us, this will be our first RPG, or what made us love RPGs. Or maybe it's the thing that got you into RPG or video game music. So I know for me, it's the latter. And, if anyone wants to share that now, or if you want to share as you introduce your tracks, you can.
My origins are very wide and varied, the things that got me into RPG music, but the ones that I picked today are definitely they're mile markers, They're very much the keystones for different phases of my enjoyment of RPG music.
Yeah, I think for me, when I was kind of thinking about how I was going to decide what tracks to bring, I was kind of between sort of two different ways of thinking. So it was either, do I go back to the beginning when I started gaming and when I initially started to get into video game music, or do I look at kind of my entire experience of gaming and look at kind of milestones within the whole time of moments where I feel like my appreciation of video game music has changed or increased or whatever, based on, I don't know, just having my kind of tastes and opinions challenged, I guess, by new tracks. Because I could have picked something from the last sort of 10 years or so, probably, but in the end I decided to go back to the 90s.
Nice. I think that would be a fun topic too, is if we have moments where our appreciation or something, I think that'd be hard to pinpoint. If you had a moment, it's oh, when I heard this soundtrack, I suddenly had a new respect for whatever, or appreciation for this composer or this style or something.
If we ever do that episode, I'm liable to sign up. Although that's kind of the angle I'm taking with the songs I picked today. Actually.
Oh, okay. The problem is a bunch of us would probably just want to pick Nier music, wouldn't we?
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
I was too.
If I hadn't brought Nier so recently.
Yeah.
I needed to change it up.
No, not really. You can bring whatever you want, but I'm happy with what you brought today. In fact, very happy. Your two tracks today are some of my favorite ones.
Aw, thanks.
Yeah. All right. Well, I say we get into it today then. Our first block is going to be Rob and Gio. So, Rob, what is our first track we're starting with?
So, I have chosen Diddle's Organ from Legend of Mana by Yoko Shimomura.
Awesome. And Gio, what is your first one?
Yeah, I'm bringing Godot, The Fragrance of Darkness, That is Coffee, composed by Noriyuki Iwadare from Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Trials and Tribulations.
Oh, you didn't miss a beat. I forgot to tell you that I altered your track name too, because apparently that's been translated so many different ways over the years. But I think that's the current English translation, semicolon and all, or colon and all. So, all right. Let's go listen to Diddle's organ and the fragrance of darkness.
Okay, so I wanted to bring a track from Legend of Mana. That was actually the first Mana game that I played, and to be honest, I was really lucky to even get to play it on the PlayStation 1 because the game never released in Europe. So I was really excited when I got an imported copy of it for Christmas, and I remember from the moment that I hit new game on the menu, the opening cinematic with the song, I think it's sung in Swedish or something. I might be wrong. I apologize if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember it being a Scandinavian language for sure. But just experiencing that song and the cinematic, I instantly remember knowing that I was going to love the music and the game generally. But that was not the song that I've brought. I chose to bring Diddle's organ because when I was deciding what songs I was going to bring, I was thinking back to games where I could remember that I would purposefully sort of let the game idle, or I would take a really long time to do something so that I had longer to listen to the music. And this is one of those moments that really stood out in my mind. So this track plays in the first town that you go to in the game. There's one screen in that town that when you go onto it, this track starts playing. And I just remember falling in love with it the first time I heard it, and I every time I visited the town, I would go and I would just let my character like sit in this square for ages so that I could listen to the music. I think there's something about the mood of it which really draws me to this track in particular, because I feel like it's got quite a strong kind of nostalgic sort of melancholy vibe to it, but then there's also this strange kind of jolliness to it as well, which is a bit of a kind of contrast to that. I really love the Eastern European sort of folk music inspiration that's coming in to this one, which is a type of sound that I enjoy generally in music anyway. Yeah, and I just felt like this kind of sound and instrumentation was not something at the time that I had experienced in any other game before. And I really loved it. I guess the track also is really good for kind of showing, or at least for me, the power that you can get in such a short track as well. And actually, to be honest, I had forgotten about this piece of music until I played the remaster of Legend of Mana that came out sort of relatively recently. And as soon as I heard that bit of music, it took me back, and I was like, whoa, okay, I remember this. And I got a really strong hit of nostalgia back for when I played this for the first time. And yeah, I wanted to bring it because it felt like something to me at the time. It was very different, and the fact that I wanted to sort of sit and listen to it and not even play the game, I felt like it was a bit of a kind of gateway into me wanting to listen to video game music outside of actually when I'm playing something. So that's why I chose that one. But just moving on to the Phoenix Wright track, this one was cool. I really enjoyed it. I haven't got very much experience with these games. When I saw that we were gonna have this one on the episode, I did have a feeling that maybe this would be the sound of this track, because I have heard sort of a couple of others from this series before. But yeah, I love the sort of smooth kind of jazzy vibes in this one. It feels like a bit of a break from the norm from a lot of other video game music. I think the track does a really good job of highlighting different instruments. There's like a section where it's very kind of sax heavy, a section where it's very piano heavy, and it gives sort of different instruments different times to shine, which I really enjoyed. But I think on the whole, this one, I think it stands out in this episode, in the tracks that we've got coming up. But also for me, I feel like it's a bit of a standout kind of generally in video game music. It's trying something maybe a bit out of the norm, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, for sure. Briefly to interject, the song is Swedish, and by a Swedish singer, no less.
I thought it was. I was pretty sure I was, but then I got into my head and I was like, I don't want to say it is, and then if I'm wrong and it's like Norwegian or something.
No, I had to look it up because it was like, that sounds right, but let me make sure.
Good. I'm glad I was right.
That's really interesting. Because I thought at first you were referring to Soccer Frontier 2. Because I know that soundtrack, I think it's German. But I mean, in my head it's all mixed up because I haven't played any of these games. But yeah, but I would actually say Legend of Mana is one of my favorite soundtracks too, even though I haven't played the game yet. And it's because number one, Yoko Shimomura did it, and everything she touches turns to gold. And number two, it's really good at evoking a sense of place, the whole soundtrack, starting from the hometown song Domina. I love that song.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Yeah.
And this one, actually, this is the kind of song if I heard it as a kid, I'd find it a bit challenging. It's just an organ. It's someone going crazy with an organ. And as an aside, I find the title of the song really funny. It's one of the funniest track names I've heard in a while. Because I don't know, like you could construe it a certain way, and so, but yeah, I just think it definitely gave me a sense of like if I had heard this as a kid, like I wouldn't like it as a kid because I'm just like that. I don't have good taste, and as a kid, and then as I get older, it somehow returns to my head, and I'm like, what is that song? I need to find that song. You know, it's one of those songs that I gain an appreciation for as I've gotten older. Yeah, I think it's such a great song. Just that evoking a sense of where you are, this medieval, not medieval, but it's like, you know, like I played a little bit of Legend of Mana, so like I have an idea, and yeah, it's perfect for the game, and it's such a catchy little tune as well. And I'm actually wondering, I'm curious, Mike, why you paired this with Godot? Is it because like they're in the same key? Because it kind of sounds like they are.
I am not good enough to identify if they're in the same key. No, I pair them together because I get a real sense of warmth out of both of them. Even though I was going to call this block like chill beginnings, but I should probably say warm beginnings. Like Legend of Mana in general, I think that's one of the things, like we're already talking about, like everything you guys have been saying, like what I like about the soundtrack is the soundtrack as a whole has this warmth and this really like kind of home. I mean, obviously there is a hometown song, but it's so welcoming and inviting, which of course comes through in this track too, even though this is like a 54 second track. It's very short, but it still, even in that short runtime, it still has that sense that the whole soundtrack has, just with this really cool like organ sound. And I got the same kind of vibe from the Phoenix Wright track, you know. And you know, we've had the jazz like arrangement album version of this before, in episode 54. That was actually my first time hearing it, so like for me it was kind of interesting hearing that one and then this one after. Like I know that obviously this one came first, so like I'm going backwards. Like this is like, oh wow, this part of in my head, like part of me is like, oh wow, this is like a cool, like, you know, demake version of that other one. Like I know it's not that, but it's cool. It's still, even with the completely different instrumentation versus like the live versions or anything else, it still has that cool, like that smooth jazz feel, that, you know, you can hear it. You could easily picture it in like a cafe or like a little like hideaway bar or something like that. So yeah, I mean, that's why, like, I got a similar sensation from both of these songs, which are both wonderful. But that's why I paired them together. I'm also very glad that I have a coffee on hand right now while listening to this. Otherwise, I would have had to go get one because I just want one listening to this song.
I mean, it is such a coffee song.
Yeah.
It fits the name perfectly. And I really like it because Ace Attorney's really good at, and I talk about this a lot in these podcasts, that juxtaposition. Because when something really intense is happening in Ace Attorney, they really ratchet up the BPM, the excitement. They switch a handful of their instruments over, which stands really nicely up against these. This is not only like a smooth coffee bar kind of music, that saxophone gives it that edge of, you know, detective work, that's always ever present in the Ace Attorney games. The idea that you're, you know, seeking things out, or trying to figure things out, even if this one is, you know, more relaxed than some of those tunes. It really kind of speaks to the tone of the game, which is so interesting with Ace Attorney, because again, it's got that juxtaposition. Like sometimes it plays it straight and sometimes it's super over the top. And I think it's maybe a testament to why the series runs so long, is the fact that it can balance those two themes so well. it can hold more than one feeling for you to experience in there, which makes the highs hit higher and the lows hit lower.
Yeah, the way you're describing it makes it sound a bit like Yakuza kind of.
Yes, very much so.
Oh, yeah.
In a weird way, but yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're right though. This character in particular, Godot, is like very he somehow manages to drink like 8 cups of coffee in like a single scene or something. He's really kind of out there, and it's funny that you say like this gives off like a warm, smooth, chill feeling, because I find it difficult to like separate this theme from the character. The character starts out being like this smug a-hole. You kind of really dislike him because like he's like constantly insulting you, and he's not even, in my opinion, he's not very good at his job. But like, there's a reason for that, and it like the tone of this song evolves towards the end. It takes on like a tragic tone. Something happens to Godot, and for me, it's like one of the first times I ever considered a song that way. Like first time I ever like thought of a song ever evolved in meaning to me. And also Phoenix Wright, like Trials and Tribulations, like one of the first like adventure games I played too, like one of the first like visual novel type games. So so like this was like definitely like a song that I've been, when I saw the topic, I was like, oh, I'm probably gonna bring this because this has like some meaning to me, and also like my love for jazz in games kind of started here too, along with the other song I'm bringing. But Godot was like kind of like the beginning of it, because like I was also enamored by like the smooth feeling and pretty much. That's pretty much like my perspective on that.
Nice. I mean, I'm glad that it worked for this topic on like 2 or 3 different fronts.
Yeah.
As someone who's only ever played one Ace Attorney game, I take it that the tragedy you're alluding to ties into the wild mask I've seen on Godot.
Yes.
I need to get back to that series because I had such a blast with the first one.
Yeah, me too.
I've got to take a second on Diddle's organ though. That does not come out well. Legend of Mana is, and I said this before the podcast, maybe my favorite soundtrack of all time, if not definitely top 5. And this is one of those that always gets like stuck in your head, It's such a catchy melody, and the instrumentation kind of layers on top of that, gives it that weird little bit of like melancholy or discomfort, the kind of discomfort that you get, from a circus where like, okay, everything's a little bit off here. I know that this is something meant to be enjoyed, but also kind of like prepares you for something to be off. But all the same way, this is, I think, one of the most iconic songs in the game, weirdly enough. Absolutely adore like very simple instrumentation, a really strong melody that gives you a sense of place. And I think that's maybe one of the things Legend of Mana does most. Sometimes you walk into a screen and like your memories trigger because you know what music is playing in that screen. Like there's a very strong association of music and place in that game that I think is one of its strongest suits. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yep. I guess my one last comment before we move on, going back for a second to Geo. I guess my lack of experience with this game is why I managed to do this pairing. Because after hearing you explain it, I can see why you're like, why do these go together? It's like, well, because I don't have the context. I only know the music.
It's amazing though that the song can evoke such a different feeling without context. Like, I don't know, it just works on many levels, I guess.
Yeah,
the song
for sure.
itself, yeah.
All right. Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, our next block here is, well, these aren't the only 16-bit songs today, but these are very definitive 16-bit Super Nintendo songs. So we're going to start with my first track today, which is Kids Run Through the City from Final Fantasy VI. This is the Pixel Remaster version. And of course, this was composed by Nobuo Uematsu. And Wes, what's your first track today?
I'm bringing the heaviest hitter I can think of from Chrono Trigger, which is Frog's Theme by Yasunori Mitsuda.
Oh, fantastic. I'm
Hell
so
yeah.
excited. All right, let's go listen to Kids Run Through the City and Frog's Theme. So here we are. One of my favorite games and soundtracks of all time is Final Fantasy VI. Not the most uncommon statement to make on here, but I'm just such a fan. This was one of the first 2 soundtracks that I ever owned. In fact, the other one is my second song. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But in this case, I wanted this song because this has always been a favorite of mine. The town theme, or this town theme in Final Fantasy VI, is just so lovely. And I know a lot of what we have today are original songs. And the original song, the original version of this, the Super Nintendo version, is great. But, you know, how do I put this? In this case, I wanted to use the Pixel Remaster one because it's so just serene and lovely. And, you know, it's the same melody as the original. And like, that's the beauty of the Pixel Remasters, is that, you know, for me, often the game and the music is like an idealized take on the original. They don't deviate that much, outside of, you know, maybe adding vocals in one song, but otherwise they're so true to the original, and they feel exactly, I get the same sense, the same feeling, the same emotions and everything with this track as the original, but this is just it's more refined, it's a little more crisp, kind of cleaner instrumentation, and you get more subtleties in the sound in this one that you couldn't get before. But it just really conveys that, you know, peaceful like sense of home, and just again, it's always been a big favorite of mine, and this is one of my favorite treatments on the Pixel Remaster soundtrack. So really, I had to bring something from Final Fantasy VI because it was one of my first ones, but I didn't want to bring something too obvious. And I'm not saying that just because Terror's theme has been on the show like 5 or 6 times in the past, for good reason. So yeah. For Frog's theme, boy, Wes, you're going to get me more emotional with this one than even my own picks here. But most people have probably heard me say by now that Chrono Trigger is my favorite RPG. And Frog is just one of many great characters in a game that's filled with great characters. His theme is so just incredibly like moving and triumphant. And if somehow you're playing the game and you weren't rooting for him before you hear this theme, you have to be now, right? And, you know, I'm not just saying that because he, you know, splits open a mountain with his sword after his like grand speech and declaration about bringing justice to the land. But boy, it's just one of the coolest moments in that game. And you know, it's part of it is because of this song. It would still be cool, but not nearly as effective without this music. It's one of those things where, you know, in games where you get like, you get this like legendary weapon or whatever, like this a plot weapon. And it's like, oh, it's like 4 points better than the one I had before. And an hour later, you're replacing it. Not really the case here. This sword really is stronger than anything else he has. But also, even if you do replace it later, I don't really care in this case. It's such a moment, and his theme is just so beautiful and cool and moving. Yeah, really fun. And it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure the first like 2 or 3 seconds don't play in the game, do they? Or maybe they do sometimes, like quietly. I just feel like it's one of those things where when I first heard the soundtrack, the very, very beginning of the song, I don't recall hearing in game that much. Like it felt like a surprise on the soundtrack. But it's been a long time. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing it very often either. It usually kicks in, you know, at kind of the swell.
Yeah, yeah.
I love these 2 tracks because they almost like either one could have come from me. Because SNES is where I really started getting into RPG music, like seriously. This was around when I got internet for the first time. SNES was still kind of reigning king. So I would go online and try to find some of these songs from games that I loved, and Frog's theme was one of the first ones. But in those days, you couldn't get like full CD quality sounds off the internet. So you would go find MIDI files that people had made recreating the songs.
Yes.
Really lo-fi bleeps and bloops, like lower quality audio than than most would imagine. But I would still listen to Frog's theme on repeat because I loved it absolutely so much. It's really the defining, like, the first time that I heard video game music that I really wanted to listen to outside of playing the game. That has since changed, and now a lot of those older games are like near and dear to me, but I don't know, Chrono Trigger holds a special place in my heart, so I had to bring it if I was going to talk about, the origins of my love of RPG music.
Can I cut in? I want to ask really quick. You're talking about listening to MIDIs and stuff. Were you an RPG fan reader that far back when we had the built-in MIDI player in the header of the site?
Yes, okay. I was.
We, for anyone who's not as old as Wes and I, or at least didn't read RPG fan in like the late 90s, our site was built in frames, and the top frame of the website had a little embedded MIDI player with a drop-down menu. You could pick a song and play it, and it would just, you would have a soundtrack as you browse the site. A very, very of its time feature, but it was pretty fun.
Please bring it back.
Yeah, I quite like the sound of that, actually.
I'll see if I still have all the files. I mean, that actually predates me. Like, that was something that was on the site when I joined, which, I technically joined really early on in RPG fan, but even that was before me. That's how old that feature is. Anyway, Wes, please continue.
Yeah.
As for, what is it? Kids Run Through the City Corner? Something like that?
Yeah, although on the Pixel Remaster, they got rid of the corner for some reason.
Okay. Kids Run Through the City. This is like the de facto town theme for me, because it is the most like calm, like, oh god, this place feels idyllic, I need to protect this place kind of feeling, which is something that really drives me in RPGs, like the feeling that you're helping someone, you're saving something worth saving, which sometimes makes some of my RPGs a little bit more difficult, because there are plenty of RPGs where everything's already been ruined. You're just trying to pick up the pieces. But FF6 isn't like that at the beginning. And having those senses of peace kind of throughout the game, that there are people living their lives, is so dang important to me in world building, and this song really brings that home. I really love this Pixel Remaster version, because really all it did was change the SNES synth versions of instruments to the real versions of those instruments, making it more of a live recording. And it basically just enriches what was already there, rather than trying to add something new, which is something pretty great about a lot of the Pixel Remaster tracks. That's
hard to do too.
It's really difficult.
It's so, whenever you try to like remake or update something, it's so tempting to be like, well, let's make this better while we're here.
But no, this track especially really does just feel like trying to recreate the memory more so than the reality, which I think is absolutely wonderful thing to achieve when arranging a soundtrack.
For me, it's actually been interesting to hear you two like talk about what the song means to you guys, because I am a bit younger, so I didn't start with the SNES era. I really I did play a bit of PS1 and stuff, but I really started with the PS2 and the GameCube, and so I didn't get to play FF6 or Chrono Trigger until much later. And but at the same time, it's like I kind of have the same. I still have nostalgia for it for some reason. Like when you guys were talking about, what it meant to you. It's like, oh yeah, why does it feel true for me too, even though I never experienced it. And I don't know. There's just something about these songs. Like Frog's theme makes me emotional too, and so does Kids Run Through the City. So I just find that cool.
Yeah.
And like another observation about Kids Run Through the City, like now that I think about it, it's kind of like the template for all the other town themes, like moving forward, that Square has done, right? Like FF7 kind of sounds like this ahead, like we call that song Ahead on Our Way or something.
Yeah.
Sounds like
No,
Kids
I
Run
see
Through
what
the
you're
City.
saying. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so that's the power of that song. Like even Traverse Town, or the one in Kingdom Hearts 2, Twilight Town, kind of sounds like this song. So it's very interesting that it's had like such a legacy in terms of like the way it's been arranged and the way it sounds. And yeah, the Pixel Remaster version is definitely the ideal, like the ideal version of the song made real.
I'm similar to Gio in that I got into gaming a while after these games first released, so my experience, especially with Chrono Trigger, is very limited, and it's something I need to change, really. I've only sort of played a little bit of it and then obviously heard a lot about it. But
I mean, did either come out over there originally? I forgot.
I'm not sure. I don't know, because at the time when these originally released, I would not have had any games console.
okay.
So Final Fantasy VI did eventually get a PS1 release, but it was it was right near the end of the PlayStation 1 like cycle, and I think I played it for like a bit, and then I got PlayStation 2, and I just never went back to it. But I've played a lot more of Final Fantasy VI than I have of Chrono Trigger. But both tracks are great. The Frogs theme from Chrono Trigger, I really enjoyed. Those like really high, almost like whistle tone notes that come in quite early on were really unexpected, and I thought it kind of changed the track and made it something quite unexpected, and definitely like I can imagine that quality making it kind of stand out against a lot of the rest of the soundtrack. But just like the feel of it, it's very like rousing, that kind of marching beat that plays through it. It obviously is very fitting for the character. I thought that was great, and then the Kids Run Through the City, I knew that one already, and that's I mean, I was really happy to see that we had a Final Fantasy VI track on the episode, because the soundtrack is top tier generally, but it's like you said, Mike, it's got such a warm, comforting feel to it. It's just really lovely. I was actually when I was listening to the tracks getting ready for the episode, my partner was in the room. He is not a gamer at all, but he heard it and he was like, "Is this Lord of the Rings?" And I was like, "No, this is Final Fantasy VI." He was like, "Oh, it sounds like the music that plays in the first film when they're in the Shire." And it had never occurred to me before that they sound kind of similar, I suppose. But it's interesting that they are certainly aiming for the same kind of mood, and they are trying to like get you as a listener to kind of feel a particular way, and they are definitely similar in that kind of way. So I thought that was quite an interesting take on that. But both really great tracks.
Awesome. Yeah, the Final Fantasy VI one I could have also paired with the first couple, but I really wanted this Super Nintendo block here, so here we are. All right. Well, that brings us to our midway point, and now I think we're going to go get into a fight. Not with each other. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to fight with any of you. But we have some battle music, so Gio, you want to introduce your next track?
I'm okay. The first song for this block is Colosseum Round 3 by Tsukasa Tawada. It's from the game Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness.
Sweet. And Rob?
Yeah, so I've got Battlefield Without Light, War Theme 2 by Miki Higashino from Suikoden 2.
Okay, let's go listen to Colosseum Round 3 and Battlefield Without Light, War Theme 2.
So, like, similar to Godot, like this battle theme in particular, because it's like really formative for me, like for my tastes, because it's like the first ever battle theme I've ever heard that sounds like this. Like it's not like everything I'd heard up to this point. I was like probably like 10 years old, 9 years old, and then I'd only heard like really upbeat or like oppressive sounding music for like boss themes or battle themes. So this was like the first one. I was like, oh, battle music can sound like this. Like, wow, because like generally speaking, the Pokemon XD soundtrack is like very unique in the series of Pokemon. Like Tsukasa Tawada is a very, very, very good composer because like he was pretty much single-handedly expanded the palette of the kind of music that could be fit Pokemon game, and he's like really influential on me because I'd never heard like a jazz fusion battle theme before. This is pretty much like a jazz fusion track. It's kind of mellow. Yeah, it's just this. It has this mellow vibe, and this was like shocking to me as a kid. And I couldn't get enough of it, and all these years, like it kind of carried it with me as one of my favorite songs. Like in general, the soundtrack is really good. And like because like growing up, actually, like my dad, until now, my dad loves jazz. Like he loves Pat Metheny and like Weather Report, and like I didn't like it when I would hear him listen to it, but like this song kind of like this sounds like Pat Metheny. So I don't know, like I kind of understood why my dad liked the songs that he does, and then I started liking it too. And so in a weird way, I kind of connect the song with my dad as well. So and it's hard to understate how influential it has been on me, because like I know Mike, like every other song I bring to Rhythm Encounter is like kind of jazzy, because like that's what I like. So
Right.
Yeah, and it all kind of started with Pokemon XD for me. Yeah, people should really check that soundtrack out. Nintendo keeps taking down like the soundtrack, so I don't know how how you can, but if you can find a way, maybe on Cage Insider or something, you should check it out. Because
I mean, hopefully it gets added to their new music app.
Oh, I know. Which, by the way, it's not available in the Philippines. So
are you serious? No.
It's not.
I mean, you're not missing out on a ton yet. I installed it the first day. I mean, not to go on too much of a tangent. There's like less than 30 games in there right now, but they've added to it like 2 or 3 times since they launched it. So if they keep up that pace, we'll see. Like recently, they added Donkey Kong Country 2. Good. Wii Sports.
Sure. Good.
One of the ones they launched with, not to spend too much time on this, is literally the Wii channels soundtrack. Like all the audio from the different menus and channels of the Wii is one of the collections on here.
They know. Everyone.
It's great. It's great.
Yeah.
So
the Zoomers love that soundtrack. Yeah.
Yep. So hopefully there's. I don't think there's any Pokemon in here right now, actually. Which they really need to fix that.
Yeah. I mean, I know Pokemon has like a different management, like a different handler. So maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll never come.
Scarlet and Violet is in there. So.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a chance.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, and hopefully by then, they release it more widely.
Yeah. I'm sorry you don't have access to it.
Yeah, it's okay. But then I wouldn't be as upset. But then they've been taking down like all these channels on YouTube, and it's been kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I mean they're always like that, right? It's like just people upload these because you don't release the soundtracks. It's not even like, in most cases, it's not even like that they were there and now they're out of print. Like so many just never even had one. So it's like, well, you're not losing income because people have no way to buy it or to listen to it. Anyway, sorry. Please continue.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. But anyway, moving on to Suikoden 2, which is like something I got into much later. I'm already 20-something when I played Suikoden 2. But I'm so glad Rob picked this song because for me, I think I'm pretty sure this plays during the strategy part, right? Like when you're doing the this song, when I was playing Suikoden 2, this song was stuck in my head for weeks. Like I kept doing that da, na, 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 just while working or something. I don't know why. Like and like I don't know. It's like and now it's back and like I don't hate the song at all. Like I really like it because like it's one of those songs like I'm hoping they like revisit in the coming remaster. Like maybe they could record it again because I think it for me it just needs like a little bit of a change in instrumentation, like a little bit. I don't know, a change in like production so that the melody stands out more. But I really like this song. I know a lot of us in RPG fan love the soundtracks of Suikoden. It's like this is definitely one of the most memorable songs for me. And how many times you hear it in the game, and I am. This was like definitely something I also understand would be nostalgic, even though it isn't nostalgic for me. So I'm just curious what Rob has to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I chose this one for a similar reason to why I chose my Legend of Mana track, and that was that I remember when I first played this on the PlayStation 1, like I would really look forward to the war battles in that game, even though they're not even that good. Like the war battles in terms of gameplay are probably one of the worst parts of the game, but I would look forward to it so much because it was the only time that you would hear this song, and I would like purposefully drag out the battle so that I could like sit and listen to it for longer. But I just think it's such a great track, really. I think Miki Higashino does a really great job of getting a really good variety of different sorts of sounds and moods into the soundtrack as a whole, but there isn't really anything else in the game that sounds quite like this track. I don't think. I love the like intensity of it. It feels really there's like so many layers in some of the sections of the track. There's like so many layers of instruments and vocals. I love the kind of chaotic, like cacophonous like feel that this track has, and I feel like it reflects the kind of chaos and danger and passion that you would want like a war theme to have. I just think it's really great, and it is really memorable to me, and whenever I hear it just takes me back to like playing Suikoden 2 in my bedroom on my PlayStation. So yeah, it's great. But with the Pokemon track, it's interesting with that one, and it's nice to hear Gio also say that it was kind of unexpected when you heard it for the first time, because when I saw that this was a battle theme, and then I have not played this game, by the way. My Pokemon experience is limited pretty much to the main series. But when I saw this was a battle theme, I kind of went in expecting something that this track is not really. I was really surprised at how, I guess, subdued it is overall. It feels like relatively calm for the battle theme, but in like a good way. I think it's a common theme with quite a lot of the tracks on this episode is that they're doing something which is in some way surprising or unexpected or unusual for the time that those games came out, and I feel like this track is a good example of that. I mean, even like now in 2024, I found this track quite surprising in a really cool way. I really enjoyed some of the instruments on it. I feel like it kind of subtly takes inspiration from elements of pop music that was around at the time that this game would have been released. The like electric guitar that comes in and the kind of like heavy synthy bits. I thought it was a good one.
I agree.
So, while Suikoden 2 is very familiar to me, Pokemon Colosseum is a blind spot. This is directly in the era where I'm too cool for Pokemon, but not really. But, you know, I kind of think I am.
So like last year?
Yeah, basically.
No,
I am
I'm
way
kidding,
too
kidding.
adult and mature for Pokemans. And it makes me regret it because I hear so many good things about the GameCube Pokemon games, and then I hear this tune as a battle theme, and like, did I miss out on peak Pokemon? did I really mess up here?
It's never too late.
You might have.
Yeah, I might need to find a way in there. Or they can release some remasters. Just do me a solid. No, this is like, I've not heard a Pokemon battle theme like this. You know, it's not bright, poppy, jubilant. It's got a little bit of edge to it for something from Pokemon, while still having those little bits of like fantastical elements, like the synth sounds that I can only think of as like trying to sound like falling stars throughout. It's like it fits Pokemon, but it fits like as if Pokemon grew with its audience a little bit, which kind of feels like the tone of the GameCube games is like Pokemon aging into teenagers, which isn't generally Pokemon's thing. It generally aims everything at like the youth of today, which I think is mostly a good thing, but I think that there is space for things like this, and arguably something like Pokemon Legends that feels a little bit more like, okay, you've grown up a few years. Here's something that's a little bit more your speed now, kind of like Digimon often does. And I don't know, this track is so nicely driving while still having that jazz I know you love down to the bottom line, the bass line. I have never heard this song before this podcast, but it's definitely encouraged me that maybe I do need to seek out these games. Maybe I do need to finally give them a go. Maybe it'll give me an excuse to do a retro review sometime next year. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah.
But as I said before, very familiar with the Suikoden series. That was very much my bread and butter starting in the PS1 era. I don't miss an entry. But I don't know, this song had never stuck with me. And I don't know why, because as soon as that like little bit of swell about like 10 seconds, 15 seconds into the track hits, instantly overcome with nostalgia. The war battles are such an integral part of the Suikoden experience, because you've got this gigantic cast of characters and all of these combatants and non-combatants who all of a sudden can kind of come in a very interesting way, leading squads, doing large-scale battles against each other. And I'm honestly not sure if the war battles have been done much better than Suikoden 2's. And this music really helps with, again, that tone of Suikoden 2, where it's oppressive but hopeful, especially in the second game where Luca Blight, the villain, is just this overwhelming, terrifyingly evil force. Music like this, that's, you know, it definitely feels like capital S serious things are going down, but not that it's without hope, because there are those swells, there's that chorus that kind of plays to both ends of the spectrum as the song evolves over the course of time. This is one of those things I've spoken about before, how much I love the advent of CD audio in RPGs, and how much more depth of expression is allowed when you've got just more tools in your chest. And I feel like this is an amazing example, because like simply the composition of this could not work in 16-bit. Like the elements that make up the actual melody of the track are too complex, too varied to work on anything lower powered than CD audio. So I don't know, I adore this track. I adore Suikoden 2. When those remasters come out, and they will come out, keep faith. Play them a lot. And then start bugging them for a Suikoden 3 remaster so we can keep on keeping on.
Well, a couple of you have mentioned having certain blind spots. This entire block was a blind spot for me. I'm sure it's no surprise to anyone that I have not played Suikoden yet. And same with the Pokemon one. I could be wrong. I think Pokemon Colosseum is at least on the Switch online. I don't think Pokemon XD is, but maybe eventually it will be. If
you're
that helps.
thinking of Pokemon Stadium.
Is it Stadium? Not.
Stadium.
Oh yeah, you're right. Because Colosseum is GameCube. Although there's so many rumors floating around about GameCube support coming. So maybe
Fingers
that'll happen
crossed,
too.
everybody.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So for Pokemon, what a cool opening beat on this one. I like what everyone else said about it, about the tone being like kind of an unexpected battle theme. But what I also like about it is it kind of like, to me, it has a this is not the technical musical term, a big soundscape. Like it just feels more grand than what you would get on like a Game Boy hardware, like we were used to back then. Not that there weren't, the Stadium games and some other things, but there's something about the sound that makes it just feel like it really fits like a larger scale battle. If you could see how much I'm gesturing with my hands right now, you could see that I'm like expanding outward as if I'm holding a Colosseum. But yeah, like it I like the sound that you guys talked about, but also that it has a feel that just wouldn't work on like small hardware or like a tiny screen. Like that's what I got out of it. But it's still, I like that it still has like that synthesized sound. So it's like it still has that like cool synthy like 90s or 80s feel. I had a note. This is gonna date myself, but it made me think of something like someone playing like the Knight Rider theme in concert. If that makes any sense to anyone, I don't know. I wrote that.
I wish it didn't, but it absolutely does. Because I'm about as old as you, around as old as you.
All right, there you go. Yeah, just the synthy like keys and guitar, like it's such a cool sound. So, thank you for bringing that one, Gio. And then we talked about. I think someone even literally said oppressive on Pokemon, how it didn't have that feeling, but that's exactly the first word that came to my mind for the Suikoden 2 track. Battle music in RPGs obviously comes in like many varieties, but this is like, to me, this is definitely that oppressive kind. It feels like the kind of battle that's either overwhelming odds or just really, really dire stakes. And yeah, so I assume that's maybe the case sometimes in this game. So I think that sense, those feelings are conveyed really well between like the vocals used here and just like the overall weight of the music. So yeah, it definitely it gave me a feeling, even though I don't have the context like the rest of you do, or some of you do. But no, a good listen. Two very different sounds in this block today, but I enjoyed both of them, even though I was unfamiliar with either one coming in. All right, are we ready for our final block?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm super excited about this one.
Can we ever truly be ready for our final block?
I don't know.
Yes, and we are now.
Okay. All right, Wes, what are we doing?
Well, I brought along for our next block the Tantagel Castle from Koichi Sugiyama, unfortunately, from the Dragon Quest I Symphonic Suite.
All right, and I brought one of many songs that appear in Rhythm Encounter that we introduce as I was going to bring this but couldn't, because clearly it had been on the show in the past, and wow, somehow it had never been. My final track today is Fear of the Heavens, the intro theme from Secret of Mana by Hiroki Kikuta. So let's go listen to would you say Tantagel?
I said Tantagel. Whether or not that's right, who knows?
Okay, I don't know. Let's go listen to Tantagel Castle and Fear of the Heavens.
So I think I've told this on most of the podcasts I've been on, but Dragon Quest 1 is an essential game in my development. It's the game that taught me how to read. It's the game that got me into RPGs. It's the first video game I ever really desperately wanted to beat. I grew up watching my mom play this game, and with me as a child who couldn't even read yet, asking her to beat the game over and over because I wanted to see the last boss because he looked so cool as a dragon. So this is basically was the motivation for me learning to read, was so that I could play this game. And I've beaten it, countless times since then. But it also started my fascination with not just RPG music, but video game music as a whole. Because this was the first game I'd ever played. Because before this, I'd played Mario, I'd played a lot of the defaults, as I guess I was about to call them. But Dragon Quest 1 was the music that I would hum on the way home from school. It was the music that would be stuck in my head. So many of these songs have been, ringtones, and my notification noise is still a Dragon Quest level up. This is core to my RPG musical tastes, even though they've evolved. A lot of my favorite composers are far beyond this stage. These specific songs will still get me, and Tantagel Castle hits me really hard because it's the first song you hear when you start a new game and you first see your character. It's compositionally in this orchestrated version that I decided to bring because I don't think anyone's super jazzed about listening to NES music on this podcast.
I mean, I am, but
the thing is, Dragon Quest compositions have always really hit hardest when they're symphonic. That's why every game has a symphonic suite that's released eventually. It's really made for this nice, dense instrumentation, this multi-layered performance, and the fact that this kind of composition is part of the original soul of this NES game is I don't know, kind of beautiful to me. But it's it's childhood captured in a bottle for me. Not to mention, in the original Dragon Quest, the only place that you could save your game was at Tantagel Castle, so you had to use a Chimera wing or cast a spell to go back to this castle every time you wanted to save. So you heard this music constantly. Between this and the world map theme, one of those are probably the sound of Dragon Quest 1. And I know this is the one that I was feeling the day that I picked, I guess. But I know it's if you haven't played anything in the Dragon Quest series, this is another instance where I say you've got to go freaking play these games. As we're recording this, DQ3 HD is pretty fresh. It's going to be when this releases too, I imagine. If you've never played one, go pick that up. Go pick up Dragon Quest 11. And go pick up Visions of Mana, or the Mana Collection on Switch, or really half of the Mana games out there, are good entry points. Because our next song with the Secret of Mana track, Fear of the Heavens. Secret of Mana is another foundational game for me, for different reasons, and I'm so glad that this track is here because it's one of the most standout game-defining tracks of Secret of Mana. This game stood out to me because it was the first RPG I could play with a friend, and I think that's why it stood out to a lot of people in its day.
Yep.
Because RPGs are so often solitary activities, and being able to share it with a friend, and even using this as an excuse to introduce a friend who's never played RPGs into the genre, this is a damn good way to do it. I actually, in the Super Nintendo days, went out and bought a Super Nintendo multi-tap so all three of us could play at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And this... Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is played in the title theme?
Yeah.
And it's a very good preview of how good all of the music you're about to listen to is. I mean, hopefully people know Kikuta is an absolute master. at this point, but if you didn't, you do now. Because this is such a complex composition for the SNES even. And I feel like that's come through a lot in a lot of our picks today, is like surprisingly complex, memorable compositions from systems you wouldn't necessarily expect it from. And that's what makes something stand out, is like, oh my god, this is ahead of its time. And Secret of Mana's soundtrack is absolutely like, it defines its time by being better than a lot of the rest of what's out there. There are dozens of tracks you could pick out of Secret of Mana to be like, you know, a formative pillar of growing up, but I think this was absolutely the choice.
Yeah, all right. So I have to be careful what I say about Dragon Quest music, because both Wes and Geo are here, and I tend to get myself in trouble, especially with Geo. Also, it's a big week for Dragon Quest fans because Dragon Quest 3 just came out. I feel like I have this reputation where I don't like Dragon Quest music, but I do. I do in certain ways. I just think I'm glad you brought the symphonic one, because I think it really does accentuate that these are good compositions. I think it's usually when I make a comment that I get in trouble with one of you, it's because I sometimes feel like the juxtaposition of the really like, oh, it sounds like it's still playing on an NES in a modern game throws me off. I understand why they do it. But the fact that this theme was composed back in the 80s and it still works today and can appear in formats like this, or that ukulele version that Geo brought to an episode, was that earlier this year?
Yeah.
It really, really is impressive. This version is fantastic. You know, the most time I've spent with Dragon Quest music, because I did play the first one, but I don't think I finished it because I just didn't know what I was doing, is definitely in the Builders games. So I've heard a lot of the most common and like iconic themes from the first two games, at least their versions in Builders. So like this is nostalgic for me too, but in a very different way. It's nostalgic to 2016, 2017, whenever the first Builders came out. But it's so beautiful. This version, the instrumentation is great, and it really just brings the composition and the melody to life. So really happy that this was here. Okay, was that all okay to say? Am I okay?
Yeah, you're okay. I'm not
still
yelling
checking,
at you today.
It's looking okay.
Okay, all right. Now about that stare sound effect.
Keep it holy now.
All right. Just saying, I want an orchestra version of that stare sound effect. All right, that's all.
I think all sound effects should be orchestrated.
Yeah.
Before you move on, Mike, I've been keeping a Dragon Quest song in my back pocket for a long time now, and I'm just waiting for the right moment to spring it on you, because it's like my best shot at converting you.
See, that like you don't really need to convert me. Like I said, it's like I think these are the compositions and the melodies are great. I just think there's a weird disconnect the way the instrumentation is sometimes used in certain games. That's all. Or
I understand.
And some of it, I've had this before. Like some of it is also marketing. Like sometimes, I think it was one of the trailers for Builders 2, where like they were showing like, you know, all this like darkness creeping into the world. Like it was like, oh wow, this looks really dangerous. But they're playing like the main like Dragon Quest theme, and it's all really triumphant and happy. But it didn't jive with the visuals, you know. And I know they have songs they could have used for that. So you know, it's more about the usage. It's not about the songs. I just think that I know they want to use that theme because it's familiar, but it doesn't fit with what they're trying to show sometimes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, no. You're wrong.
That was weird too. Like the intro of the Builders 2 was so like jarring because it was like the most messed up stuff happening, but then it's like dun, 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 dun,
yeah. See, that's what it is. Like it's just certain things like that. And honestly, like most of the game is not that dark until the end. But all right. Well, what topic do we need for you to bring this secret song up? Do you have it planned for one of the topics we already have planned?
I could, but it depends on like what gets assigned to me. I was thinking of the surprise we're doing build your own RPG 2, and I might bring it depending on if I have the proper context for it.
Ooh.
I
Okay.
might need you to DM me what you're thinking of. My patience won't last out that long.
I'll send you something.
I'm very curious. All right. Anyway, Secret of Mana or Mana. I feel like for a long time I was convinced that it was supposed to be Mana, so I finally started saying it that way. And then Visions of Mana comes out, and they like literally on the title screen it's like Visions of Mana. I'm like, well, I don't know anymore.
Visions of Phenomena.
Yeah. The Sesame Street crossover we needed. So this was not my first game or first RPG or even my oldest musical gaming memory, but Secret of Mana along with Final Fantasy VI both have the honor of being the first game soundtrack I owned. There are people of a certain age who may remember this, but for everyone else, in the early 90s, pre-internet, Square had a product lineup you could order. And I thought there was like they had like a newsletter that they sent out, like a mail newsletter. And I thought there was a product catalog, and maybe there still was, but it was also something that came with some of their games. In my case, it was a poster that came with Final Fantasy VI, or 3 at the time. And on the back of the poster was like this product catalog of, shirts and a watch and all the other things that you could order, including the soundtracks to Final Fantasy VI and Secret of Mana. And again, this was not internet. This wasn't you go online, click some buttons. This was like there's a phone number that you could call and place a phone order, or an address that you could mail a check and like a handwritten note saying like, I want this one with this product number. Here is my money. Which so much a product of its time. I guess you can maybe still order things on the phone. Like there's like home shopping and stuff, but I don't know. It's really, really feels so dated compared to how we buy things now. But that's how I got it. That was like a 14-year-old me trying to convince my parents, like, no, this is actually music. Like, I'm pretty sure I like had to like turn on the games and show them. It's like, look, this is what it is. It's not what you're thinking it is. To sell them on the idea of like why I needed them to like buy these things for me. So like there's a lot of memories engraved in both of those soundtracks. Even though the Final Fantasy 3 one was for some reason called Kefka's Domain. Not on that poster, by the way. On that poster, it showed Final Fantasy 3. And just quickly, like this poster, I'm putting a link in the show notes because I found someone has a scan of it. It really took me back seeing that again. Anyway, the Secret of Mana is just really, really dear to my heart. Like Wes said, it was a co-op RPG, like that was unheard of. And it meant that it was something that my brother and I could play together. So like I almost never played this game by myself. Like that was really the draw of this one. It was that it was a co-op game. So, we got to play it together. And so I have obviously positive memories of the game and the soundtrack. And it just means so much to me. The fact that the intro to this game is making its Rhythm Encounter debut at episode 149 is kind of wild, but
absolutely bonkers.
But we keep the last several episodes, like there's been like a track in almost every episode for the last like 3 or 4. I think that someone's like, wow, this has never been on. But I'm like, I really feel like it's one of those things that was just meant to be. Like it's so important to me for this topic that I'm glad that I could use it. Like your Lavender Town theme for the Halloween episode.
Sometimes it's just so serendipitous.
Yeah. Those like that rumbling, like those like distant like beasts at the beginning of this. It opening with that, it's like it sets this tone like immediately, like in the first second of like that you're being transported to this other world, and then that kind of falls away to make room for like this more delicate sound. And it just, all of that came together, and it's just sets this tone, like I said, for something that I just was just so new and different to me. That it can be like mysterious and evocative and wistful and all these other things. And just, it's just one of my favorite songs from like that entire era of gaming. So I'm really happy I could bring it here today and share my co-op and mail order experiences with you all.
Oh man, no one is going to be familiar with mail order experiences. We just aged ourselves out of this one pretty bad.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it doesn't ring a bell. No idea what that is.
Well, you know what? I mean, I look at it now, though. It's like, you know, even years after this, like, it was rare to, like, there was only so many ways you could get soundtracks. Like, they weren't released here. It's actually really surprising looking back that early 90s Square was releasing, you know, US editions of these soundtracks. Because even now, like, you can buy them through like Square Store, but like they're imported. Like, they don't produce them here. So it's like someone at the company in the early 90s was like, this is really important to do, that they didn't sell you imports, that they made US versions of these soundtracks, which is really sort of unheard of, especially at the time.
Yeah, seems like such a great luxury or something. Like, it's something that is really only of that era, could have happened during that time, you know, pre-internet. So I'm a little bit envious, you know, born in the wrong generation kind of thing, you know. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just chime in as well, because for me, this was like a very, very strong block. And starting with Fear of the Heavens, well, for me, that's my favorite song in the Secret of Mana soundtrack. And just the start, the way it starts is like, wow, it's like it's an Oppenheimer moment in your brain, in your ears or something, because like, such a creative and, you know, thematically rich way of starting a game. And the way the song builds up, and it doesn't, you know, it finds ways to continue building its melody and all that. I can imagine how much this had an impact on you, Mike. And it had an impact on me playing it in 2021, I think. I only played the Switch version, like the collection of Mana version, and I really, really loved it. And Tantagel Castle, it's pretty much the same, actually. I played it, the first time I played it was the Switch version, the $6 version. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I know it from, like, unlike Mike, I know it from Builders. I knew it from Builders before I knew it from the original game. But yeah, it's just it just has a elemental sense to it. Like, it's like, oh, this is the first JRPG's first palace theme ever, and to this day, like, if Koichi Sugiyama is good at one thing, he's good at making memorable melodies, and this is like one of the most memorable of them all. So yeah, like I think it's just such a good song. I think Mike and Wes pretty much said everything I would have wanted to say. So yeah.
I was really intrigued going into this block of songs because my experience with both of these games are minimal to none, pretty much. And yet I was really pleasantly surprised that I actually recognised both of them when I listened to them, which I guess is indicative of how iconic and important both of the games and also tracks are. Tantagel Castle, I really enjoyed this version. I thought it had a really nice kind of regal sound to it, but also I felt like it still had that kind of Dragon Quest mischievousness to it. I definitely got a bit of that through this version, and also still in the original version, which I listened to as well, just to make kind of sure I'd heard both. So that was nice. And then with Secret of Mana, Fear of the Heavens, I really loved this one. Again, this was one I'd heard before. I really love the like twinkly kind of high notes that work over the top of the more kind of soaring sounds underneath. It had a very like mystical energy to it, but both of something that really struck me about both of these tracks is how innovative they sound, especially for their time, which I think is something that Wes touched on as well. I think, yeah, you can definitely tell that they were like pushing things forward for video game music when these games would have been released for the first time as well.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I forgot to mention is that, you know, a lot of times when I bring songs here, I do listen to multiple versions. Like my Final Fantasy VI one, I settled on the Pixel remaster, but I still compared a few different ones to be sure. And I did that with Secret of Mana too. And, you know, even though one could argue that technically, musically speaking, the 2018 remake is better, or at least more refined, it doesn't have that intro. It doesn't have those sounds right at the beginning, and I don't know why they did that. Now, I don't remember. Maybe it does when you actually play the game, but it's not in the track on the soundtrack. So I was just like, well, you lost me. The rest of it sounds nice, but I'm like, for me, like that feeling core to my memory of playing this back then, and everything I said, like it needs that intro. Like that is so important to the song for me. That's not in the rearrangement is so weird. All right. Well, that's our episode. Thank you, everyone. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed everyone's stories. Gio, as usual, you went like really deep in your reasoning for bringing yours. I enjoyed hearing that, so I'm glad that you put so much thought into it. You know, it made me look at mine. I'm like, huh. I picked mine because they were the first soundtracks I owned, and you're just like, anyway, buckle up. I have a tale for you. So on this episode, we have a couple games that made their technical debuts, which is the best kind of debut. This was actually the first time it's not really the original Dragon Quest, but it is technically the first time we had a song from the original Dragon Quest outside of the Game Boy Color version. Someone brought a Game Boy Color version from the first game in episode 113. And likewise, we've had the jazz version of the Phoenix Wright song, like the jazz arrange album in episode 54. Was that also you? No. 54. Who brought that one? But this is the first time we had an original song from that game. So, you know, debuts in a way. Coming up next on Rhythm Encounter is a big one. I'm really excited about this. Episode 150 is our first music quiz show. If anyone listening also listens to Retro Encounter, well, first of all, if you don't, you should. If you do, you've probably heard some of the quiz shows that Solosi puts together there, and they are so good. So Pat and I have been working on this one, and we got some input from Solosi because as far as RPG Fan podcasts are concerned, he is definitely the quiz master. So we got some input there. So we're going to try our own musical quiz. Some of you may even be back for that one. Very excited about that one. Should be a fun experiment. We just wanted to do something special to hit episode 150. So look for that in the next couple of weeks. And then after that, we are doing an interview episode with Brandon Boone, composer on Slay the Princess. Since the pristine cut of Slay the Princess came out recently, we talked to Brandon about the music in that game and inspirations and stuff like that. So look for that coming up later in December. If you have thoughts on this episode, on topics, some favorite songs, if you want to tell us some of your, RPG fan or RPG music origin tracks, you can reach us at music@rpgfan.com. And what is the best way for people to reach each of you, starting with Rob?
So I have very recently moved to Blue Sky, so you can get me on there at Neon Cowboy.
All right, and Wes?
Mostly you can find me on Blue Sky as well. You can find me at Lone Weasel.
Nice. And how about you, Gio?
I've also started using Blue Sky. You can find me there at 10bstar, TENBI star dot, bsky.com, I think is how accounts go.
Something
But
like
anyway,
that.
and then,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that. And then also, you can find me on Discord. I'm also 10bstar on there. And also you can find me on rpgfan.com. You can email me at geo@rpgfan.com.
Nice. Random Encounter is not the only podcast on the RPG Fan Podcast Network. We also have Random Encounter and Retro Encounter. Over on Random Encounter, they recently posted an episode about Dragon Quest III, and of all things, not Horizon Zero Dawn Remastered, but the Lego Horizons Adventure, the Lego Horizon game, which is such a weird change of tone for Horizon, but it looks so cute, and I want to play it. There should be another episode of Random before this airs, but I don't know what it is yet because we're recording this just that far in advance. Meanwhile, Retro Encounter recently wrapped up their month of Zelda episodes, so check those out. We did a spoiler cast for Echoes of Wisdom. There's a game journal for Link to the Past and a Zelda draft. I was on one of those, but I'm sure the rest are great as well. So yeah, they did a Zelda month. Coming up this week is another spoiler cast on some Atlas game called like Metaphor or something. I don't know if anyone's heard of that one.
It
And
rings a bell, but
yeah. But some people were excited and they wanted to talk about it. And coming up in honor of this, the week we're recording this week's release of the Dragon Quest III remake, they're doing a 2-part Dragon Quest III journal. So be sure to check for that in the coming weeks as well. You can find RPG Fan on most social media. In most cases, we are RPG Fan.com. You will find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter, and Twitch. On that, we're on Blue Sky as just RPG Fan. We also have a YouTube channel, a Discord, and our website is rpgfan.com. As usual, I want to mention quickly that we have a shop, not just because holidays are coming up and we want to encourage people to buy our beautiful RPG Fan review card collection, because it would make a great gift for the RPG fan in your life. But that's why I'm mentioning it, because it's a cool book and I'm happy with it. But we also have an RPG Fan merch shop with t-shirts, and I actually mentioned this, I think 3 episodes ago, that there were supposed to be new t-shirt color options, which didn't actually happen until now. Now they are actually available. We have some new acid washed t-shirt options. They look really cool. I'm actually waiting to see one in person, but if you get one, send us a picture. Tell us how you like it. You can find our shop at rpgfan.com/shop. And finally, if you enjoyed this, please, we would love it if you could review or subscribe or otherwise support us wherever it is you listen, whether it's Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and so on. To close out, as we always do, we have a bonus track, and today that is you, Gio. So what are we closing out with?
Yeah, I'm bringing Aitai Toki Niha, more commonly known as the File City theme from Digimon World. It's a nostalgic one for me, so I hope it also hits some of you in the nostalgia bone.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to pick a different song. Look, we already know that I'm stuffy today, and I could barely say Tantagel, so I'm like, this one's going to be a problem for me. All right. Okay, well, I'm glad that you gave an alternate name. So yeah, we're going to close out with the File City theme from Digimon World. And even though we don't usually comment too much on bonus tracks, do you want to share a little bit about it, like why you picked it for this episode?
Oh, I grew up with it. It's something that I know connects me with my brother and sister, because we played Digimon World a lot growing up. And it's definitely like a starting point for all of us, like musically. I know my brother ended up learning this song on the piano. So yeah, I don't know. It's a I know Wes said it's like a mile marker. Like these songs are like mile markers for us. And yeah, File City theme is one of the first ones ever, for sure, in my
great.
in my life. So Yeah.
All right. See,
There you go.
that's what I knew you'd have a good story. All right. So again, we're going to close out with the File City theme from Digimon World. Thank you everyone for being here. Thank everyone else for listening. And we will see you in a couple weeks for our quiz show. Bye, everyone. Okay, I'm sorry to do this. I need to unstuff myself. Just give me a minute.
I'm resisting the urge to like laugh at someone saying I'm gonna unstuff myself.
Yeah,
I wasn't gonna
thinking
say
the
it.
same.